Well, it had to happen. I mean, the first time when you saw that this contest was going to take place between Magnus Carlsen and D. Gukesh in the freestyle chess event. And unfortunately, we have seen a not so, if you look at it, a not so good result for Gukesh, the world champion, because in an attritional game that you've seen in the Weisenhouse Freestyle Chess Masters event, Gukesh, in a very, very grinding end game, has lost to Magnus Carlsen. Now, this was touted as one of the best contests that we would see. Everybody was anticipating to see Gukesh in action against Magnus Carlsen because it was the first time that he was going to play the world as a world champion against the greatest of all time. The greatest of all time versus the world champion. And it was a good fight for a certain period of time until the queens were exchanged. It was almost a draw, but then a blunder by Gukesh, and it ensured that Magnus Carlsen, who is one of the best end game theorists in the history of chess, managed to grind him out with the rook and the knight endgame. And because of that, Gukesh resigned, and Magnus Carlsen has won his clash against Gukesh. Now, many people will be disappointed by the fact that, okay, Gukesh put up a fight, but he could not win against Carlsen. But now, what is the status in the Freestyle Chess 960 tournament in Weisenhouse? Well, need not worry about it. Gukesh has somehow, some way managed to qualify for the knockout stages. Remember, the format of this was that there were 10 players, top 8 go into the knockout stages, and that is when you will see the classical games being played at this stage. So, in the rapid rounds that happened, 5 rounds happened yesterday, 4 rounds happened today. Gukesh, remarkably, 7 out of 8 games, he just drew. He kept on drawing, and that is why when Vladimir Fedosiev lost his game at that point, and of course, Nadirbek Abdulsattarov also managed to end up with a favorable result in this thing, Gukesh has scraped through to the qualification to the next round as well. But this contest, when you look at it, represented that, yes, why Magnus Carlsen versus Gukesh was expected to be the best contest in Weisenhouse. Gukesh, the world champion, Magnus Carlsen, the greatest of all time. Whatever may be his conflict with FIDE, whatever may be his conflict when you look at freestyle chess and all the other things, there is no denying the fact that in the 21st century, there is no greater player than Magnus Carlsen. I mean, you saw it. It was initially bishop corners in the freestyle chess opening. In the Gukesh versus Carlsen game, it was the bishop corners, and that is why you could easily kind of maneuver at this stage. But remember, Gukesh was playing with white, Carlsen was playing with black, and the end game masterclass that Magnus Carlsen showed, that is why he is the GOAT. Magnus Carlsen is the GOAT for a reason, and because of that, Gukesh couldn't find any answers to that, the attritional style of play which is there, and that is why Carlsen came up victorious. And at one point, after the first 5 rounds, Carlsen was in sheer trouble. But then trust him to come back on a big note. He's been winning games consistently. Yavakir Sindarov and all of them, along with Fabiano Caruana, Hikaru Nakamura, Magnus Carlsen, everybody is doing well at this point in time. So Gukesh may have qualified for the next round. Levon Aronian is out along with Vladimir Fedosiev. So that is why it is a bittersweet moment for Gukesh. Yes, he can be proud of the fact that he qualified for the next round, the knockout stages, but he will be bitterly disappointed by the fact that he could not get over Magnus Carlsen. And that is why, yes, it is a very, very, you may say, gut-wrenching loss. But at this point in time, you have to understand that whatever gains you make in freestyle chess, it is more of a bonus. So, yes, Gukesh has been open to playing the freestyle chess tournament in both the rounds as well. When you look at both editions, Gukesh did play in Weisenhouse last year. He also played against Carlsen this year also. Last year, Gukesh had beaten Carlsen. Here, he unfortunately managed to lose. He had beaten Ding and Magnus. Let's be very honest about that. So, yes, Weisenhouse 960 freestyle. Unfortunately, the preliminaries have not ended well for Gukesh. He lost to Carlsen, but there is no shame in losing to the greatest of all time. But Gukesh will also do certain things. I mean, for example, he was winning against Fedosiev, but then he unfortunately touched his queen. He had to make the move, and he blundered in that. In all the other games also, against Vincent Kamer, he tried to get going, but then he blundered there. That's why it was a draw. 6 straight draws, 7 draws in 8 games. And now in the last game, he unfortunately lost. So that is why Gukesh will end with a not so favorable score, but then it is just enough for him to make it to the knockout stages of the Weisenhouse Freestyle Chess 960 event. So I'll take a couple of comments. Preetham Chaudhary saying Gukesh, Jinmoy Kalita saying Magnus's endgame is something else, good for a reason. Magnus's mid game, opening, and end games are simply one of the best. That is why he's the complete player when you look at it. There is what is the weakness of Magnus Carlsen? Sometimes, yes, he can lose motivation and he can get distracted. But when he comes out to play in all these kind of unconventional chess tournaments, he's simply the greatest of all time. And Abhishek Rawat said, sir, what the heck? This freak possesses Magnus in endgame. He's the beast. But yeah, who is his toughest opponent in this tournament? Well, if you look at it, Abhishek Rawat, there are certain opponents who can give a very tough fight. I mean, Nakamura is there, Hikaru Nakamura. There is Fabiano Caruana. There is Ali Reza Firoja, who can give him a very tough fight. Javokir Sindarov. I mean, Sindarov, the 19-year-old, has been one of the best players in this Weisenhouse freestyle chess so far. And Tushar Maskara saying Gukesh played well enough for me as his major focus is classical, and he doesn't have the intuition for now to find best moves in smaller time frame. Now, classical would be favorable for him, which is why I think Tushar, if he does well in the classical event, it will be a redemption of sorts for Gukesh. Now, remember, the rapid event is done. Now, in the knockout stages, there is going to be the knockouts. Last time Hikaru won this tournament, I have to check Abhishek Rao. I think Hikaru won, or was it Magnus who won 960? That I have to check. So that is why I'll have to check that. I just can't remember at this point. So yes, the preliminary rounds of the Weisenhouse Freestyle 360 event are done. 960 event are done. Magnus Carlsen's beaten Gukesh. It was looking good, but unfortunately, it has not happened. Gukesh couldn't win against Magnus Carlsen, but he's through to the next round. So thank you so much, folks, for joining us for this live update. Subscribe to Sports Today for all the latest news and analysis.